Good evening and welcome to the Gin and Tonic show on this Friday, the 15th of December, 2017. Apologies for the croaky voice. The illness I've had still hasn't cleared up. So you will hear me a bit like a Gandalf or some croaky old fella. I hope it will be better in the new year. So as always, welcome to my trusty co-panelist, co-host. Good evening. How are you, sir?
Hi, good evening. Better than you are.
Yes, sounds like it. Excuse me. Yes. Before we get started, I just thought, because I've seen it everywhere, a reminder today for those of us that care, and it's probably mostly non-believers. Christopher Hitchens died this day on 2011, so 6 years ago today. And somebody posted this on YouTube. I'll post in the link there. Go and watch this at your convenience. Here is him doing one of his rhetorical displays. He was a master, I don't know how you pronounce it, but a master of the rhetoric. Him, having a go with free speech. So just a reminder to all of us that he died 6 years ago today. I don't know. Did you follow him? Did you ever get to meet him at all, Stops?
No, I never met him. Absolutely not. I would have loved to. I am a great admirer. I did criticize him because people always say, "Yeah, but he's your hero and you worship Hitchens." No, I did not. I thought he was a brilliant guy, and I desperately criticized him for his stance on the Iraq War. I thought that was totally wrong. So like that, but it's like you say, the rhetorician. I mean, he was brilliant. Really, he was really, really brilliant. He was really great at what he did. He had there's a forger of words or something, and he was really good at that. He died in a way that he would have liked to die, and that is drunk and high on smoke. So yeah, what more can you say?
Yes, he lived life to the full. It seemed like he put nothing back, and he was somebody that, but he was able to articulate his views so cogently, so tersely, just in a manner that befitted virtually every conversation he had. And I've never seen somebody best him in a conversation. In fact, he's put people down in polite ways,
And impolite.
Yes, and impolite as well. I do have to say that he wasn't always accurate, and I agree with you. I didn't agree with his stance on the war, etc. And there were certain other things that he sort of didn't answer to the degree, but he was able to talk so well that you almost forgot, I would say, that the question wasn't perhaps as answered as fully or accurately as it could be. But that was his gift, I guess. And I saw the debate with his brother, and his brother was just a shadow of him, basically.
But Annie, when you hear the voice,
yes, you can still reminds you of the voice.
Of him, I think he is somebody worthwhile remembering. He is somebody who left a mark here on this planet, who will be remembered for decades to come. Anybody who is going to listen to what he had to say whenever. No, don't worry about this guy. Come on. This is like you getting comments like Subur.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying, yeah, I should go to Speaker's Corner and blah, blah, blah. And if I don't go to Speaker's Corner, like if I'm living in Melbourne, I still have to go to Speaker's Corner to say, listen, you're an idiot. Doesn't matter. So anyway, I think Hitchens was somebody who left his mark, and he will be remembered. Anybody who's going to listen to anything that he said, even in 20, 30, 40 years, then this is still he's still going to say, wow, this guy knew what he was doing. And this is, I think that's the most that you can, leave behind. And this is a brilliant memory to leave. So I think that's excellent. And I will remember. Yeah.
Totally agree. He's left a lasting legacy, whether you like him or you don't. And even many of his detractors, had good things to say as well. And I think that's the mark of somebody that is able to deal with both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So and I've seen hundreds of comments all over YouTube, all over Twitter, remembering for those people like us that sort of admired his style and some of the things that he did, and the people's lives that he touched or communicated with. And I think that's like you say, a great legacy. So for those of us who do drink, not me, unfortunately, but I've got some water here. So do take a moment and have a sip of whatever you're drinking, if you do drink, and remember Hitchens on this day. So now moving on. I thought I'd just share initially a couple of news things that just sort of came to me here, because we are going to talk about is Islam a religion of peace, which I think we may do the I'll pretend to be as a Muslim, and you can set me straight stops, but I have got a few things that I can read out here, etc. But I thought we'd start with a couple of news articles that just sort of caught my eye. So I'm going to quickly share these first, and then we'll get to the crazy comments in a moment.
If you want just something, go ahead. If you want to take it easy on your voice, hey?
Sorry, say that again.
If you want to take it easy on your voice, just tell me, and I'll take it and I'll read it.
Oh, okay. Let me see how I go. If I start coughing and spluttering later on, then I'll slow it down a bit. Right. So here we go. Here's one that I just saw recently. These two ladies from Saudi Arabia. Well, let me read the article. Basically, they're at risk of forced return to Saudi Arabia. So these two Saudi sisters are in Turkish police custody at the risk of being forced to return to Saudi Arabia, where they could face serious harm from Saudi authorities or family members, Human Rights Watch said today. One of the sisters lost the challenge for her deportation in a Turkish court in December and is at risk of immediate deportation, while the other's case is still in process. The sisters said they fled Saudi Arabia in late February to Turkey to escape abuse from male family members, ranging from beatings to being locked in their room and deprived of food. Turkish authorities detained the sisters in May in Istanbul, and they attempted to follow up on applications. So again, these women, and you can read the article. I will copy and paste it for those that are interested. Here it is. Let me just paste it into the main chat. For those who want to read the full thing, I just want to get it in there. So again, these women, these are grown adult women. You can see them there. And it actually further on says something about how it's, here it is, the spot here. The sisters are at risk of serious harm if returned to their family. They also face possible criminal charges in violation of their basic human rights, including parental disobedience. Okay, note, parental disobedience for adults, which can result in punishments ranging from being returned to their guardian's home to imprisonment, as well as charges of harming the reputation of the kingdom due to their public requests for assistance. So I just thought, again, thoughts out for people like this. This is just one case of hundreds probably that are out there. So again, a moment of thought for us that are sitting comfortably at home here, people that are desperately fleeing for their lives and being detained and possibly going to be returned. So,
and the irony is for criminal charges.
Yes, for leaving the country. This is the challenge that we have, isn't it? When you're an adult, clearly in certain countries anyway, you're still treated somewhat like a minor, like a juvenile, especially if you're a woman. And that's something Hitchens said while I think about it, that, the emancipation of women would be one of the great things that could happen in this world. The moment you give women the freedom to choose what they can do and so forth, that'll be a massive step in the right direction. Here's the other one. Oh, something happened to it. This was the other one that I've still had up here for a while. I don't know if anybody's seen this. This man was jailed for 15 years for hate crimes after leaving bacon in a mosque. So let me just read a little bit about this here, make it a bit bigger. A man who broke into a mosque and left a slice of raw bacon has been sentenced to, and this is in the US, by the way, 15 years in prison. Sorry, say again?
Meals on Wheels?
What's that?
Bacon? Delivering bacon?
Well, I don't know, but this guy obviously did it on purpose at a mosque.
Yeah, okay, that's called Meals on Wheels.
That made me laugh. I start to cough. Michael Wolf from Titusville in Florida pleaded guilty to break-in at an Islamic society. Now, let me just say up front, in case it needs saying, some people might think that we agree with this guy. Clearly breaking in to anywhere or any criminal mischief we don't agree with. But obviously, I think the point of this, as I'll read on here, is 15 years with probation. So he broke into the Islamic society. This shows the 37-year-old smashing windows and lights with a machete before leaving bacon by the front door. Wolf pleaded guilty to criminal mischief to a place of worship with a hate crime enhancement. You Gotta love this. This is why I hate this hate crime
Hate
nonsense.
crime? Delivering bacon to the needy is now hate?
Well, I'm not sure that they requested it, so I think that's part of it, being a hate crime. Because stops. I think there's something with your Minicam, because I can occasionally hear myself coming back, and there's a big delay as well. So I don't know if you can disable or do anything with Minicam there, because if you're not sharing the screen, if you're not playing a video, I'm not sure you need it, and it seems to be lagging you a bit.
This is the whole problem. It's not on. And I'm getting ding, ding, I'm getting noises, I'm getting all sorts of things here because something is complaining. You know what this was?
Yeah.
I was charging a headset.
Right. Okay.
And it was picking up. Yes. I tell you, Windows 10 is full of shit.
Change to Mac. You'll never go back.
Oh my goodness.
Cost you an arm and a leg, but you'll be a happy person with a crutch.
I'm special. If music gives you goosebumps, your brain might be special. Music gives me goosebumps. I'm special.
All right. Before we go over to that part of it, guilty to this hate crime enhancement and a plea deal for vandalizing the mosque itself with a hate crime enhancement, making it a felony. He waived his rights to pre-sentencing investigation. In addition to the sentence, Wolf will remain on probation for a further 15 years. It was dropped in exchange for the guilty plea. So armed burglary, obviously meaning that he brought in a machete. So there we have it in the US, breaking into a mosque with a machete. Obviously, that's a dangerous thing, especially if he was going to, attack somebody, but, which we don't agree with anyway. But 15 years with the hate crime, because the hate crime was the enhancement, but yeah, that got him to the felony. And that's why I'm such an avid anti-hate crime or anti-hate speech, a hate crime advocate, really. So there we go. That's what happens when you start down this dangerous, slippery slope of hate speech, hate crimes, etc. Let's move on to our favorite, and thank you so much, Stops, for all of these. I'm just going to move my mic so that I can.
Oh, he's so funny.
And let me just present this to everybody here. So here we go, courtesy of Stops. These are some of our crazy comments. This Malaysian Chinese is trying to spread hatred against Islam and Muslim. He should go back to where he came from, China, Hong Kong, or wherever. Stay there and find your peace. He should not have said anything that he don't understand, especially quoting something from the Qur'an and making his own conclusion of what it meant. That show how ignorant and full of hatred against Islam he is. And you, of course, came back and said, quoting his sentence, the Malaysian Chinese is trying to spread hatred. What exactly did he say that constitutes hate? Is quoting the Quran equal to hate? So as we've said so many times, and we keep saying the same thing, it sounds like we're playing a record back. This whole thing of hate. This is the new buzzword. As soon as you criticize something, and maybe you do it quite stringently, or you do it passionately, or whatever the case may be, and then, as you pointed out there, that this word hate comes out, because that's the buzzword. Hey, we've got hate speech, we've got hate crimes, as we've just seen. So hey, why not just use the word hate, because hopefully that'll make a difference. So thank you for that one. So obviously this guy's tan. For those who haven't seen it, it's on my channel. Indonesian Malaysian fellow who came to Speaker's Corner. I don't know if he's been there before, but he was quite vociferous. He was quite vocal, passionate. The first video, somebody threatened him, and then he got into conversation with that young Muslim that I spoke to afterwards, and then he went around speaking to other people. So he obviously got people's backs up, not only at Speaker's Corner, but in the comment section as well.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that he did not aggravate anybody. I thought he was quite relaxed about the whole thing, and I don't understand why people were so offended, were so angry with him, because all he did is show them a Quran with the tafsir of Ibn Kathir. And he said, well, this is one of your scholars, one of the, like recognized scholars. What is wrong with that? I have actually a sequence where, oh shit, I forgot his name. I think it's one of the Muhammads. He actually gets so angry He goes and squeezes the guy's arm, and I thought he is going to slap him, but he just pinched his cheek.
Oh, Tawhid, you mean?
Was it? I can't remember which one now.
The white convert with a beard, Guidance Avenue fella.
Is he a white convert? I took him apart when he did this long speech, when he threw everything, every apologetic fallacy that you can get, he threw at a guy sitting on the side in the park.
Yes, I remember you. That's right. I remember you did a video on that. That's right. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Right. Yeah, I think it was mostly his tonality. He had this tone of like, show me, this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. And that's the tonality. I think that's what got people's backs up. And I'm just saying as an observer of, because I know a little bit about tonality.
The link I don't have at the moment. Just go to the Speaker's Corner and Analyze channel, and it's one of the first ones that I did there.
Obviously, you can post a link to your channel there, Stops, and people can go and have a look and subscribe.
I don't want to advertise, come on.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, go ahead. Please, you must. You take a lot of time to put those videos up. People can go and learn, entertained, educated, or not, if the case may be, and they can post comments. Right, moving on. This is a beauty. Atheism, again, offers you millions of theories. Islam offers you the single truth. Gotta love it. Got to love it. Don't know what atheism is, but it gives you millions of theories. Well, yes, science does offer theories. I know you guys want, quote, absolute truth. Again, what's the difference between absolute truth and truth? It's the same thing. But of course, a monumental claim for which, of course, there's no evidence. But that's what all these commenters do, and that's why we love having them on our crazy comment section. Thank you for that one. This is a beauty from you. And this fella actually asked if he could join. I don't know if he will, but let's see. You said, Stops, if he kept quiet, you'd think hijab is an adult. But when he speaks, you realize he's the brain of a child in a man's body. It shows us what Islam does to a normal brain. Oh, I've got to be careful here. If I laugh too much, I'm going to cough here. The country with one of the highest, if not the highest per capita income is Qatar. They can't wear what they want. They do what they want, eat what they want, drink what they want, say what they want, have sex with whom they want in the position they want. They must be happy. And this Abu fellow replied, stop spamming. Coming ignorance, who is afraid to share his credentials with us? Laugh out loud, ha ha. You bald head irrationalizer, can't get Islam off your mind. Well, if he joins us, he's welcome to put it to you directly, and I'm sure you can respond in your own way. But of course, you've been to all these countries. These guys don't know that. So again, just name a few of the countries that you've been to other than Qatar in the Middle East.
You want 3 hours? Oh, yes, I've been to most places except South America and Australia.
Wow. Okay. So you are extremely well traveled, and most, if not all, of the Middle East. Have you been to Iran as well?
That's where I went to school. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Right. Good. Cool. So, yes. But again, these guys, a lot of these guys seem like, because you've got an avatar on there, they've got to find something to argue, and it's obviously not the points you are making, because that would be hard to do. So it's like, it might be because you're hiding with an avatar, or you've got a certain tonality, or you hate Islam, or whatever the case is. But, obviously we encourage them to actually bring a coherent argument rather than ad hominems. But we may be waiting a long time. Somebody
else, because this bald head rationalizer sounds very much like he's talking about rationalizer.
Or me. It could be me, I don't know. Or yeah, as you say.
Exactly, yeah.
Or rationalizer. Yeah, it could have been rationalizer if he's been hanging around long enough to know who that is. So yeah, it could have been the wrong one, but there we go. Good. You are stupid and pathetic. Do not open your mouth. What was that in relation to?
Also something like that. I commented on a video by someone, and I said, come on, this is ridiculously stupid because of this. And they didn't like that, because I was attacking one of theirs. And this is why I got all this vitriol here, because I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to criticize one of the idols. And I think it was actually Hito.
Yes. It doesn't matter what they say. I mean, I don't think any of these Muslims really pay attention to what their Muslim brothers are saying. As long as it kind of sounds good, They go, wow, this guy is brilliant. And they kind of go all dewy-eyed.
Assertive, it's okay.
What's that?
As long as it's assertive, it's okay.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't really matter what's coming out of the mouth. It's rather a case of, hey, if he sounds like he knows what he's talking about and he's Muslim, that's all I need. And I will believe it no matter what. So, you know, and I see this sort of thing a lot as well. Here's a rather long one. Oh my God, you are everywhere. Don't you have a life? Your first sentence is an ad hominem. Seriously, are you in love with that fallacy? Always calling out the personality of your opponent instead of their arguments. The country with one of the highest, if the highest per capita, is Qatar. Red herring fallacy. They can't do whatever they want to do. They must be red herring after red herring after red herring. Seriously, is that part of your comment that makes sense?
Okay, what is interesting here is this is a follower of this Kevin guy, who's a hell of an arrogant, egotistical fool. All right. Now he says he studied philosophy in Malaysia, and now he is the big, honcho who gives courses and lectures and things like that. And this guy is a worshipper. Okay, so now I criticized this guy and I said, listen, he hasn't learned anything in the last couple of years, because the last time I talked to him, he was like a child, and he still is. And I made a video on him, which gained me notoriety with Thunderfoot, and that this is how I met him, and blah, blah, blah. Now, this guy he says, your first sentence is an ad hominem. Well, he doesn't know how to spell this, but I understand it's supposed to be an ad hominem. But now he copies all the things that this Kevin guy is saying, but he doesn't understand them. Because he says the first sentence is an ad hominem, and then he says, what this would mean, I am not addressing any of his points. And then he says, well, you made the point, if not the highest per capita income is Qatar, already contradicting himself, because I've just, commented on one of the points. So it cannot be that this is an ad hominem, because I'm addressing the points that he makes. And and the red herring fallacy, absolutely not. He doesn't understand what that is, because I am actually making a point where he is saying the people who could do everything are the happiest people, and actually they're not, because the happiest people are the Muslims. And that's why I made this comment with Qatar. And because he says the rich countries like Norway and Denmark are not the happiest. They're just pretending that they are. Actually, the Muslims are much happier. And this is why I made this comment. And this jargon of Assad thinks that he's now really, really giving it to me hard, because he's copying the words that this Kevin guy is using, but he doesn't know what he's talking about.
So who is the Kevin? Is he got a channel or something? Is he a Muslim?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what he's called now. It's something Andalusian Project or something like that.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Is that the guy that threatened Thunderfoot? Was that the guy?
Yeah. That's the guy.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm with you now. I'm with you. Yeah, and he made a comment on my channel. He's the only guy that's ever made a comment in response to my response video of Sabur. And I noted, because he brought in Essence of Thought, and so Essence of Thought did a long response to him and basically just sorted that all out. So again, they do a half a job as always. But yeah, he seems to think he's an intellectual, from what I can tell.
Yes, and he's absolutely not.
No, but hey, a lot of them are fooled that way. So good. All right, here's another one. Sarah ABC, stop spamming. Islam fills us with happiness we need, not the materialistic things such as a position in sex. Ha ha. Oh, your happiness sounds very unhappy to us Muslims, because we have something that makes us much, much more happy. It's the paradise in the afterlife. It's a happiness you won't understand. It's a peace you won't understand. Actually, when you hear what makes you happy, we hear what makes you happy, we laugh. We really do, because we get a greater sense of happiness by just being a Muslim, and I love it. So this place that nobody knows exists, but you think exists, gives you a lot of happiness. Hey, can't fault that. Hey, if you want to believe, unprovable, unknowable things that makes you happy, lots of people do that around the world. Well, good luck to you.
But it makes me wonder. I wonder whether a Muslim orgasm is better than an atheist orgasm.
Yeah. Yes, the sex position. Ha ha. And the second part there. Stop spamming. I don't care what others believe. Ooh, that's the funniest thing I've heard today. Seriously, a keyboard warrior spends his 3 hours of wasted time searching up Islamic videos just in order to argue with them, and mentioning the fact that you also make videos to argue them. And then he says he does not care for what others believe. Ooh, God, I'm grasping for air. She doesn't see the irony, of course, in all of this, because she's responding to your response. Of course, that's lost. Do you know what? You and I and everybody else would stop talking about this if they stopped talking about it. If they kept it in their house and never spoke about it outside in the public, or never acted on it in ways that we find reprehensible, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd get on with other things in our lives. But they never stop. They keep talking about it. And so, we're going to respond to that. Just in case people thought we did it because we had nothing better to do.
Why does a man need 4 wives anyway? Oh, he's taking care of them because the husbands were slaughtered and now they are orphans and now they need to be taken care of. And that's why he takes them, and he still has concubines and sex slaves. I wonder why.
Yes, of course, because there's no other option, of course, because at that stage their brains, but it's something that Bill Warner said, didn't he? It's dualistic. Everything with Islam is dualistic. There's one option or the other. That's it. They can't think outside the box. There's no more than 2 options. And so, hey, either leave them there to die or take them as a slave. Which is better? Maybe there's another option that you haven't thought about because your brain is not operating at that level. Here you go again. He's going to give you all these fallacies. Go on then. I'm very interested in the reason why Mr. Ansari would not have a conversation with you. Maybe because of the fact that he has no academic credentials. He mocks Islam and Muslims in general. He has no practical debate.
Because there's a background. This is somebody else who commented to me why this Ansari guy will not have a conversation with me. Okay? And this is why somebody else, it's not me, somebody else asked this question.
Yes, I think I saw that, yeah.
Someone else. I'm very interested why Ansari would not have a conversation with me. And then Assad answered now that on me, about me.
Yes, so he's giving his unsubstantiated views as to why Ansari won't do it. Obviously, Ansari hasn't said himself why he will or won't.
I don't know if I'm a bar of soap, but he says he knows me.
Okay. And he, like I say, he did. I posted a link. He asked me, how do I get on the show? I said, friend me on Facebook, by the way, if you're watching and you want to join the Hangout.
And this Ahmed guy who's now opened a new channel he's a troll. And he sounds like him because he said, okay, I want to talk. And I said, listen, fuck off. I'm not interested because you don't have what it takes. All right, just leave me alone. And he's pestering me now.
Okay, different guy then possibly. Number 3, he has no practical debate tactics. Yeah, of course you need tactics, don't you? Don't worry about truth, honesty, openness, charitability. Let's go with tactics instead. He's well known in mocking his opposition if they make a point that he disagrees with. He loves bragging about his videos and making false statements. He has already been called out to be debated before, but like the rationalizer, ran away from the debate challenge. When Hamza announced he will debate him in real life public, he ran away and claimed Hamza won't debate on Skype.
Yeah, but this is essence of thought, not me.
Ah, okay. So he's confusing the 2 of you then. Right. Okay, so confusion there as well as a lot of unsubstantiated assertions. And this is the follower of this guy, Kevin, eh? Well, I suppose you can't blame Kevin for the followers, otherwise, anyway.
But it's the kind of people he attracts. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah. It's funny. This was a debate with Phil debating Imran. It's funny. Phil don't believe himself many of the things that he was saying, but they are scientific facts. But he still rejects contrary without any proof. Just laugh and behave like other person is foolish. Okay, I understand English isn't people's first language, but still. He doesn't believe many of the things that he's saying, but they are scientific facts. I mean, what is he actually trying to say there? Because that sounds contradictory to me, but there we go. He still rejects contrary without any proof. No, he didn't. If you actually watch the video, and I'm guessing he's talking about the part where Phil asked for information as to, not just Muhammad's close followers, but was there other information that could verify whether Muhammad was in fact illiterate, etc. And when Phil apparently had looked into it, he didn't find any further information or any corroboration that Muhammad was in fact illiterate. It was only his followers. Here we go. Why is he running away from Hamza? I mean, the irony of that is definitely not lost to me. And that, as you can see on the right-hand side, there was that debate. Why is he running? See, every time somebody runs out of time or doesn't want to speak to somebody, or in this case, Hamza, misrepresented him about 3 or 4 times, it's always running away. I mean, this to me it's like I said many times, a number of Muslims, not all, a number of Muslims got this juvenile attitude that they're on a playground. And if you don't want to play, then you're running away. It gets tiresome, but, we'll keep highlighting it anyway. And this was on a different video. And this was a Muslim responding to a guy that actually made some good points. The other guy wrote, the original state of nothing, they were talking about Lawrence Krauss and what nothing means, etc. Don't you mean something? For Krauss to show anything of any real value, he has to first show that his something can account for everything, including its very own existence. Krauss' hypothesis are a unique blend of sophistry and psychobabble, nothing more. So somebody who knows nothing about cosmology. You've got to love that.
Good.
Say again?
He's the absolute expert, and he will run around. I have debunked Krauss.
Yes, and this guy doesn't know anything about cosmology.
Is this Abu Musa? Is this the son of this Adnan or whatever?
No idea. I don't know. You might know more about it than me. I don't know who he is. But you see, when they make these arguments about cosmology, what I've noticed, certainly one of the things I've noticed, is they have no clue what they're talking about. They don't know cosmology at all. But what they're arguing from is their own personal intuition. Hey, it must be this way because when I look out at the world, or if I've studied like a few pages of philosophy, this tells me X about the world we live in. Therefore, it must be the same for the universe, even though I know nothing about it, even though there's hypotheses out there that show all kinds of different things, an infinite universe, a universe creating itself, quote unquote. And I went with Phil to interview that particular guy, and none of them violate the laws of physics or general relativity, etc. They haven't been proven, obviously, so we don't claim it, and Phil never said that they do. But this is the sort of level when people are completely clueless. They're using their intuition about the world that we live in here on Earth and then go extrapolating it out to the entire universe and beyond because it suits their agenda. So I think is the last one. Oh, no, there's a couple more. There we go. It's been a pleasure to listen to Logic by Mansour. I hope that I can say hi to you directly and thank you. And this was one of the videos. I think I sent it to you on Skype. It was one of those facepalm videos again where there was just so many things wrong with it. You could possibly do a response that would, take an hour to do. And so this guy was just commenting how wonderful it was to listen to the Logic of Mansour. Oh, and that's the last one. I keep this slide up there. This, by the way, just for interest's sake, for those interested, I've probably done it before, but this was a study that was done of philosophers that did answer the question about what do they believe in and the percentage and so forth. This was sent to me by one of the guys in our group. And you can see at the bottom there how many philosophers, are atheists or believe in or accept atheism and lean towards. So there's probably agnostic, how many theists, etc. So just an interesting byproduct there.
Wow.
So let me just stop that. Excuse me. Damn, this cold and cough, etc., just won't go away.
Well, if it's the same virus, you're in for a thing. I've got a colleague, and she's had it now for 3 months.
Oh, no, please don't tell me that. I mean, I'm eating healthily, I'm drinking a lot, etc. So let's hope that's not the case. That'll drive me nuts, man.
And she's coughing like all the time, exactly this, and this cough simply won't go away. And she's also like into this muesli and also this vegan, organic, and blah blah blah, and nothing goes away. Anyway,
yeah, I am kind of vegan. I don't eat a lot of meat, but it's just not going away. And whenever I laugh, of course, I cough a little bit as well. Cool. All right, let's move on to the main discussion topic. And I'm going to bring up a window here. And I'm sure you're going to have plenty to say on the stop. So I did think about it today again because somebody brought it up in a video, and I went, okay, let's talk about that. I mean, these are broad strokes. Obviously, there's tons one can talk about underneath that. But here are 10 reasons, 10 obvious reasons why Islam is not a religion of peace. And this is on a what makes Islam so different website, the religionofpeace.com. Here it is. You can follow along yourself. I'll pop it in the chat for those who are interested. There you go. And I might not agree with all of them, so let's go through them, and you can give me your comments as well, Stops. Number one, 18,000 deadly terror attacks committed explicitly in the name of Islam in just the last 10 years. Other religions combined for perhaps a dozen or so. And so obviously this is something that's brought up a lot at Speaker's Corner, and it's put to Muslims a lot about these terror attacks. And of course, the response that's often given is, hey, these people are just misunderstanding Islam. They are extremists. You know, if they just followed the religion more closely, then this wouldn't be happening. And, you know, what's your response to that?
I don't really have one. I don't know how this number comes about. I don't know what the data is, the underlying data is. I don't know the quality of the data. I don't know. I have no idea how this is.
No, that's fair enough. No, I'm not asking you to comment so much on the accuracy of the number, but more the claim itself.
I mean, absolutely spot on, because he's saying it's in the name of Islam, okay? And if you can say, well, it's not actually Islam, well, sorry, it doesn't work like that. If it's in the name of Islam, then whether it is misunderstood or not, then there's something wrong in Islam that you are able to misunderstand it in such a way.
I think that's the key point. If this text was crystal clear and from an almighty creator, it would, and you know, I feel like there's a knockdown argument against this, which is if you look at Jainism, the first tenet of Jainism is do no harm to any other living creature. And the more fundamental a Jain gets, as the argument has gone before, the less likely they are to harm anything, be it bugs, be it anything, ants, you name it. They even drink through a cheesecloth. They do everything possible to avoid harming other creatures. If that was the first line of the Quran, we would not be having this discussion ever. We would say these people are claiming to be Muslim and they are not. And even if Muhammad had done bad things, we could have pointed the finger and said, hey, Muhammad, you are not following the first tenet that Allah set down. But strangely enough, that doesn't occur anywhere in the book. And so, you know, but we always get this response of, hey, it's just these extremists. But that's all I want to put out there is next time that happens to you, and I don't do it enough, but I don't often talk about it in this way. But when I do, why is it that Jainism has got this tenet and your religion doesn't? Because if a Jain does anything to any living creature, if they step on an ant, you go, "Ooh, this Jain is not following the tenets of Jainism as closely as he could." His fellow Jains, they avoid stepping on ants. How is it that, let's say that number wasn't correct, there were 10,000 over the last 10 years? And we're not talking about just against the West, but against other Muslims, as you will know, being, you know, having been personally involved in one of these sort of terror attacks. So that's the problem.
Another thing, Ike is just bringing that up, and that's a very good point, because there is no universally accepted definition for terror. There are a lot of people who are saying if any nation goes to war, in other words, if, for example, the United Nations says we need to chuck Iraq out of Kuwait, then this could be terror. And this is the difference there, where people would like to see terror defined, but unfortunately, OIC is blocking this, because then that would mean Hamas and Hezbollah and a couple of those other groups would be declared as terrorists, and they don't want that. So we don't have a universally accepted definition of terror. We just have a definition which is violence for a political cause, and it is executed on civilians. And that is the way that it's categorized at the moment, and the OIC doesn't like it.
Right. What would OIC want instead?
Well, they don't say. They're just saying we don't want this. We need something to say. Well, terror can be is countries who exert their force on others are terrorists.
Yeah, well, I mean that's ridiculous, because here's the thing: we have to ask the question, and you can ask of Israel, you could ask of the US, etc. Is there intention to harm innocent civilians? If it can be proven that it's yes, and that's the intention, then you could call them terrorists.
And
If that is not the intention,
so leave out innocent, because this innocent is too much Islamic. It's just civilians. That's it. Finished. Innocent or not, civilians.
yeah. So when there's a a drone strike or whatever, I mean, they could level an entire village if they wanted to kill one person. Why don't they? Why don't they? Because it's probably as easy, if not easier, just to drop a bomb or a number of bombs and level an entire village. Why is it they try to use precision ammunition and munitions to take out terror targets? Because the intention is, now whether rightly or wrongly, whether they actually accomplish that every time, that's a different question to be asked. Unless you could get there and knife the particular person on his own. But then there's a lot of risk to soldiers and so forth. But the intention is what I think we need to be looking at with this sort of thing is, are they attempting to kill innocent people or, as you say, civilians around whatever the target may be? And then you look at the Muslim attackers on the bridge or whatever the cases may be here in the UK or elsewhere. Their intention is to run over or kill as many civilians as they possibly could. If they had a weapon of mass destruction, they would detonate it and happily think they're going to paradise with the 72 virgins. And that's the difference, one of the big differences for me anyway. They do, Rob. Come on, it's just ignorant of you right now. I don't know what he's talking about.
I think I can safely say we all condemn any kind of violence, even if it's on Muslims in Myanmar or wherever it is, the Rohingya. We heard this, we heard the facts behind this. So I can understand that people get upset over the years and what the Mujahideen have done over the last decades, but there is no reason to let this out on the current innocent, on the Muslims at the moment living there. So I also condemn that violence, all right?
Of course. I agree with you. Any violence on civilians, I mean, a civilian could take up arms, I guess. What would you call that then? Armed resistance. So I still kind of tend towards wanting to say innocent civilians, because you could have a civilian that shelters a terrorist or, colludes or whatever the case may be, or tries to protect them or whatever the case is. So I still sort of have this inbuilt thing of going, okay, innocent civilians, but you're right. Somebody put in the chat there that, well, I'd love somebody to demonstrate that collateral damage is intentional. Somebody wrote there, where was it? Collateral damage is intentional. Well, if you can demonstrate that's the case, then I'd have to agree with you. And if the intention from the US or anybody else that's got drones or any other smart munitions is that they do in fact want collateral damage, and that's part of the thing, then provide the evidence. And I would have to say, do you know what? That's intentional. That is potentially a criminal or intentional act. I don't know if you saw, there was a movie. Did you see the movie with Helen Mirren, where the entire movie was about whether they were going to drone strike this terrorist in a building, and they had this guy outside, and he had that tiny little, what's it called?
Brilliant. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a brilliant. Yeah, I love it.
The entire movie, if you haven't watched this, go look up Helen Mirren. There's a movie where she is the sort of commanding officer in the UK, and they've got a drone that's flying over this village, and there's a suspected terrorist. They've got a guy outside with a little remote control, and they've got this little remote control fly almost the size of, fits on your palm or even smaller. And they can show that it is in fact him. He's a terrorist. He's the known wanted terrorist. He's on the hit list, kill list, whatever you want to call it. And there's a drone flying around.
Eye in the Sky.
Eye in the Sky. There we go. Thank you, Stops. Go and watch the movie Eye in the Sky. And let's assume that is in fact what they are attempting to do. They're not going, hey, let's kill. And the whole movie was about, can they strike this building, and what's the collateral damage? And the computer's working this all out. And you can see they actually want to make it appear as if the collateral damage will be less, etc., because they want to get this guy. But there's a girl outside selling some toys, etc., and so they are not immediately
pull it off. Yeah.
So if that's in any way realistic, which I suspect it probably is to some degree, then their intention is specifically to take out the known targets and to avoid, quote, collateral damage. Now, I know collateral damage is an awful thing, and but if you can show that it's in fact intentional, then I don't know that you could use the word collateral damage in that sense. You would have to then say intentional murder or whatever the case is. Anyway. So moving on to number 2, I'm sure you love this one. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, had people killed for insulting him or for criticizing his religion. This included women. Muslims are told to emulate the example of Muhammad. And I think obviously you have got, and we've talked about many examples of that. I think this is the key one for me, one of the key ones for me. Because you can, and you've said it, Stops, I've said it, most Muslims are better than their religion or better than Muhammad in the sense they won't do some of these things.
Yeah.
And if you, all you have to do is follow the life of Muhammad and read the Quran. If you did those two things and you excluded all Muslims, can you still say that it's a religion of peace? And now, of course, as you know, we hear all from the apologists how, killing the poet and killing this one and killing that one that were not a threat, that had not attacked him, that had not broken a treaty. And I'm being very generous here because the response from most Muslim apologists is, hey, he only acted in defense. He never went out and attacked, which, anybody that's done, and you and Bill Warner and many others know a lot more about this. That's just not the case. But even if we were extremely charitable, there's these other cases which do not reflect very kindly on him. And certainly if he was a peaceful man, like Gandhi, never lifted a hand to anybody, or Buddha, So if you compare Muhammad to Gandhi or Buddha, he doesn't look so good. He's not a peaceful guy in that sense. Number 3, Muhammad said in many places that he has been ordered by Allah to fight men until they testify that there's no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger. In the last 9 years of his life, he ordered no less than 65 military campaigns to do exactly that. And I remember Bill Warner saying that he had done in total 95 campaigns or something like that, if I remember the number correctly. Muhammad inspired his men to war with the basest of motives, usually, excuse me, basest of motives, usually capturing loot, sex, and gluttonous paradise as incentives. Again, I've given you the link. You can go click on all of those. He beheaded captives, enslaved children, and raped women captured in battle. Now, obviously, those are general claims. There, one would have to go look into every one of them. But in that claim there, Scott, Stops, do you see anything that you would take issue with in the sense that it's not accurate? Because obviously, I'd like to know your view on that.
I normally say it's 5 things that he does. He beheads, he tortures, he rapes, he plunders, and he kills.
Okay, so on those 5, then can you give for the viewers here, because otherwise, it will be, or we could be accused, or you could be accused of just making stuff up. So
no, I think it's very, very normal. There's nothing. It's very straightforward.
Okay, so just give an example, if you would, for the viewers that perhaps are hearing this either for the first time or would take issue with what you're saying.
Well, I'm always taking, my best example is always when there are dozens of Sahih, graded Sahih by Islamic scholars, okay? Hadiths which have Muhammad say that his men should enjoy raping female captives without having to worry about their prices on the slave market.
Yeah, so that would fall under, what's that, rape?
Yeah.
Okay, and then
well, he raped. All right, there's several instances. For example, he had he obliterated a village, kills every male, and then sees a woman that he likes and has sex with her. And then he says, well, I married her and everything is cool. Now, can you imagine a girl, and she's 17, all right? She's just lost her brother, her father, her husband. Everybody in her family is dead, all the males. The entire village is destroyed, and all she does is she wants to have sex with Muhammad. This is the way that some apologists are actually making it out to look like. They are saying that this woman said she was liberated by the hero Muhammad, and this is why she willingly married him, because she saw that he was the hero and that he had been foretold in her religion, and this is why she agreed to go to bed with him. It's sick.
Yeah, I mean, there's no substantiation. This is, of course, the victor making up the history as they go along.
Yeah. Then what other examples do you want? We have lots of examples. I think we had Master Arab and Abu giving us examples where he actually went, enslaved people, took slaves, bartered slaves, swapped slaves for other slaves. It's full of examples for that. I mean, the best example is him having sex with a slave, with a female slave, and she's a Christian, Nahal. And then this makes its way all the way in the Quran, because the wife whose turn it was to have sex with him complained to the other wives that Muhammad was having sex with Maria. And then the wives got very angry, and then God came down in chapter 66. Don't be angry, and you're always ungrateful, and be happy if what you get is something from the man, and stop criticizing him.
Right. Okay. And that just happened to come after they were unhappy about that. So obviously Allah was watching, and those and presumably the way that we know that Muhammad said that is Allah said that is because Muhammad told everybody that Allah said it to him. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with a girl that he sees. His adopted son has a wife, his daughter-in-law, and he thinks she's quite pretty. So you have the whole story of how he goes there and sees her naked and thinks, oh, this is lekker. And then the son obviously goes and divorces her, and he gets married so that he can have sex, divorced so that Muhammad can have sex with his ex-wife. And then, of course, you find this in the Quran in two things. Number one, if you have a daughter-in-law, you are allowed to marry her if she gets divorced first. And the second thing is, you are not allowed to take a son, an orphan son, as a real son. He is never going to have the same position as a real son. And therefore, if you marry his wife, it's not like you are marrying a real daughter-in-law, son's wife thingamajig.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's lots of examples like this, and you can't argue with these. I mean, they're there. They're in the. I mean, a lot of people do. They say now, well, actually, these hadith, because exactly what you're saying, people are better than their God. So they say, well, if God commanded this, it can't be true. So we have to look for a way out, because we can't have Muhammad now having sex with a 9-year-old. This is not something that we would appreciate, and you can't follow a leader or an idol or any kind of a figurehead today. If that figurehead goes and has sex with a 9-year-old, that doesn't work. So we need to find a way out of this. And this is, well, we need to say, well, yeah, the hadiths are sahih, and yes, but this particular one is not. And there are instances where you can find other indications or signs that maybe Aisha was older than 9 when they had sex. You know, it's dishonest.
But in some of the Middle Eastern countries, they don't have this problem. They just accept it.
No, they accept it. And this is why that you have, I don't know how many hundreds of fatwas issued saying that it is absolutely halal to have sex with a 9-year-old. 9 years is the cutoff point. And now this is the interesting part, because it was Muhammad who did it with a 9-year-old. Now everybody can do it regardless of puberty or maturity or something like this.
Yes, and so for me, it tells me that they have no problem with this in the Middle East, but only where they've had a collision with modernity and Western civilization, and we take extreme issue with that today. Now they're trying to find ways around this. But if those same Muslim apologists went to those countries, they would probably be beaten up or chased out for talking nonsense there.
And now suddenly Aisha was 17. Please. Just because there is a mention of some battle where you are only allowed to go into battle if you're 15, and the sister was a little bit older, so she must have been 17. Come on, that's stupid.
Yeah. But I mean, again, if there are certain Muslims that want to believe this, they're in the Western civilization and they hear this, they're probably not going to go look it up themselves. They've heard it from a Muslim apologist that they tend to follow or believe or trust or whatever the case is, and then they just go repeat it, and that's how the story sort of seems to spread. So, yeah.
The people look at the one set of sentences. He says, okay, she was 6 when he married her, 9. And the people say, well, why did he wait 3 years? Not seriously, come on, this already shows you that it wasn't true. So you have the set of sentences around the saying, okay, she was 6 when she got married and 9 when she had sex. And then you have the other set which says she was actually 17. But the thing, what do you do with the sentences that say she was 6? Do you just simply delete them? The same thing in the Quran. Why is it that you get these sentences saying, well, there is no compulsion in religion? Okay, well, what about the sentences that say, well, there is compulsion, and if you don't do this, you're going to get killed? Do we just delete them? Are you going to change the Quran? Are you going to sort of mentally ignore them? How do you handle this dualism? It's
well, what I've heard, obviously, is, what was the first one you mentioned?
Which one? The one with the there's no compulsion in religion.
Yeah, the one before that, you mentioned the no compulsion, but there was one prior to that that you said you
With
read.
Aisha, where she
being
is
6.
6 and then she's 17.
Yeah. So the response I've now heard, obviously in Speaker's Corner, is, "Hey, there was only one hadith like that. We've got plenty where she's older, and so we don't take that seriously because it's very probable that that one is not entirely true, and these other ones, because there's multiple other ones that attest. Therefore, she was older than."
You see, this is the problem. Tell them to show you them. They don't exist. This is the problem. You have one hadith which says, yes, I was 6. You have another one. Yes, I was 7. Yes, I was 6. Yes. So there's several of those, not only just one. And then you don't have a single one saying 17. You need to go and project, and then you need to interpret what it says. And then you need to say, well, if she was 15 here, then well, then she must have been 17. So there is no hadith anywhere saying Aisha was 17. That's a lie.
Right. So it's really an extrapolation of a battle and then going, oh, okay, only because of this, because of that, etc.
And the age of the sister and blah, blah, blah. So there's a couple of things which could sort of point in the direction that maybe she was older. Yeah, but then what do you do with the ones that which quite openly say, I was 6 years old? What do you do with that?
They will just dismiss it. They will just dismiss it and go, hey, that's not as powerful, etc., etc. That's literally what I've heard.
You go now into the books of Bukhari and delete it there?
No. They just go, hey, it's there, but we don't think it's what they're attempting to do, and they haven't said it explicitly, but it's to go, hey, that hadith is not as reliable, it's not as strong, whatever the case. They haven't used those words, but what they do say is, hey, we don't take that as the majority opinion of scholars now. So now it jumps back to scholars again, because they're in no position to make that claim themselves.
Delete it. If you really are serious, then you have to go and delete it, or you have to reclassify it and make it dubious.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Who knows? A couple of years' time, when there's even more pressure, because the pressure is not going away, you're probably going to find, lo and behold, it's no longer strong or authentic. It's now questionable, and I'm surprised this hasn't happened already. But
it's like I showed this a couple of shows ago, where the fatwa on rubbing, Muhammad had such command of his member that he was able to rub it between the thighs of a baby and without injuring it. And this is why he was allowed to do that. So it is not haram in any which way, but you are not encouraged to copy the Prophet because he was special with his member. And this fatwa disappeared. It was, I mean, you have to go into the Wayback Engine to find it. But today you can't find it anymore.
Right. Yeah, I know.
And the same with Al-Razi. Razi, I mean, he mocked Muhammad like crazy. And then he mocked the Quran. He says, come on, you give us a book full of nonsense and then you tell us bring something like it? Come on, this is laughable. And this, funny enough, and I've showed this, it disappeared from Wikipedia. From 1 week to the next, it was erased and replaced by something else.
Yeah. And of course, most Western people won't look into this and they'll just accept what Islamists say.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because they sound convincing. And that seems to be what most people accept. As long as you sound convincing, you sound like you know what you're talking about, people just blindly accept it because they're not going to go look for themselves. And I think a lot of people want it not to be true. And they're wanting, and the Muslim apologists saying it's not true. Oh, that's enough for me. It's got to be that way because this person here has not got a bomb on or is not going to do that themselves. Therefore, I can't imagine other people would have done it. Or I can't even imagine that Muhammad would have done it because all these Muslims following Muhammad. He couldn't possibly have done this, if he was such a wonderful guy. And so people it's like they want to, it's there, but I want to delete it because I can't seem to want to believe it. So, and the other one was, what was it? The peaceful verse that you mentioned. Yeah, no compulsion. So of course the standard Muslim apologetic response is, hey, when the verse that supposedly abrogates it, well, according to them, it doesn't abrogate it. Now that's the latest. And that was only in defense. So these people, again, Muhammad only did this in defense. He never went out and attacked anybody. And I think they really believe that most people have never looked into this, but then you come up against somebody like you, Bill Warner, other people that have studied some of the history, and that wouldn't fly. I haven't, but I find that hard to believe anyway, just because I've hung around you guys and just looked at Muhammad as in the Quran itself. I haven't gone into the history of this.
Yeah, I did a long video, like almost an hour, as a response to Hamzat Sources, and he gave a lecture in Fanar in Qatar. And I really went into great depth. I can't remember if this video is still up somewhere. And there I show what the origin is of all the battles and who did what to whom and when and why and where everything comes from. Taking what Sources said there, where he said, no. Here we have the numbers. This is the guy. He said, look at the terrorism and the violence from the United States and the United Kingdom, and look what happened there. And Muslims never did this. And then he gave some examples. And I took this and I said, well, hang on, let's go back and look. And lo and behold, there it was. They did exactly this, even worse. So, I took each claim that he made and I showed it for Muslims.
Okay, great. Is that video still available somewhere?
I don't even know. This was a very long video. It took me months of research to do this video.
Wow.
I can't remember. I don't even know if it's up still somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the other thing I notice, of course, is there's a real red herring. So you're talking about Islam and the violence, etc. Hey, but let's talk about the West, because the West is not. Nobody's claiming the West is perfect. And the same thing, I see this happening a lot in Speaker's Corner and with Christians. Let's talk about your Bible. So they're being interrogated on the Quran, but hey, your Bible says X, Y, and Z. Defend your Quran first, then you can talk about the Bible or talk about the West. Defend your own thing. Islam always occupies people's time when it is a GD thing, whatever that means.
Why is it that so many say, well, look at your Bible first? And I say to them, what's my Bible got to do with anything? And it's not my Bible either. So if I say now the Bible is a piece of shit, then what? What are you going to say then? So the way that you are arguing is actually really dumb. But they will always do it. Look at your book. Bloody hell, that's stupid.
Yes, well, obviously you don't have a book per se, but that's another way to avoid to shifting the burden across to the other person. You now defend your own thing, etc. Cool. Excuse me. Excuse me. Number 4, after Muhammad died, the people who lived with him and knew his religion best immediately fell into war with each other. Fatima, Muhammad's favorite daughter, survived the early years among the unbelievers at Mecca, safe and sound, yet died of stress from the persecution of fellow Muslims only 6 months after her father died. She even miscarried Muhammad's grandchild after having her ribs broken by the man who became the second caliph. It was the same Caliph Umar who ordered the death of the first convert to Islam at Medina, an elderly leader who became a close companion to Muhammad and proved his worth in battle. Said ibn Abu Dah? Say that again, you got cut off?
Ubadah,
thank you. Was killed after a failed bid to the Caliph. And obviously there it goes on. I won't necessarily read, unless we need to, the whole thing. So basically, the point number 4 is at the moment that Muhammad died, then people fell into war with each other, etc. And his favorite daughter here died of stress and miscarried, etc. Apparently by assault from Umar. Have you got information on that particular one?
No.
No, you're not heard of that one. Okay, cool.
But I don't have anything more than that.
Sorry?
I don't have anything more on that.
Okay, cool. No,
I know the story, who killed whom and which one of the caliphs was killed and blah, blah, blah. But that, I mean, for me, this is not historic. This is just, I don't know, speculation.
Oh, really? Okay, so... But
there are no facts. We don't know anything before the Umayyads. The Umayyads with Muawiyah is the beginning of the, let's say, the historicity. That's where everything starts getting recorded. Before that, we have nothing. Everything that we have about the 7th century was written in the 8th century. So they came up with Mecca. It's the same thing as Nazareth. Nazareth did not exist at the time of Jesus. The same thing with Mecca. So, there are so many parallels, things that they simply dreamt up. They made up this stuff. So there is no way that you can show that any of these battles actually happened. I mean, if 10,000 Muslims were killed in a single battle, please, there should be some evidence of this. There isn't. Nothing. Zero. Zilch.
So where did these stories come from then?
Well, this is exactly the point. These are stories that came around after, after the Umayyads took over. Then remember, okay, shit, this takes a long time. You have the storytellers, which run from city to city, campfire to campfire, and they give you all the 1,001 stories. And they came up with all this. Remember Moses, and he went there and he took care of the Israelites. Oh, yeah, we heard the story. Ah, but you haven't heard that he crossed the sea. No, we haven't heard that. Ah, okay, here's what he did, blah, blah, blah. And then the next one comes along. Ah, but you haven't heard. Yeah, we've heard the story. Oh, yeah. Ah, but you haven't heard that he then went to Nineveh, that he got saved, and all these, because then you get all the old stories from the Jews. And this is all rehashed and then made into, or given the Arab sort of tinge or perspective, or whatever you want to call it. And then these stories come around and they say, well, this is actually a fact. There's no evidence for any of these things.
Right.
The same thing.
Just,
People hate me for this, but there is no evidence for Muhammad's existence. There's no historicity.
Obviously, that was pointed out in the book. What's his name? Tom Holland's book. In the Shadow of the Sword, I think it was, and he did the documentary on BBC and so forth as well.
He doesn't really say this. Mm-hmm. He only hints at that. He only says,
yeah.
He's not 100% sure. He doesn't say that. Most people stay away from that. Most people say, well, it's not important, and maybe it was, sort of crafted around a real Muhammad or another warlord, or a very, I don't know, some guy who was like really a strong leader or charismatic or something like that. So nobody really knows.
Yeah, it's a shame we can't time travel, isn't it? If he existed and he did all the things, we'd have to accept it. I would, here would be a wish I would have. If there was time travel, I would I would do it instantaneously. And I'd go with one of these apologists, hijab or whoever the case is, like, let's go back in time. I'm happy to come back to the present time afterwards and tell everybody we saw exactly what the Quran said. I'm prepared to bet my life. And in fact, if it does happen the way you said, I'm prepared to give my life up immediately or become a Muslim immediately, even though I still don't like, and I think, your God is immoral and irrational and incoherent, I would still become a Muslim because the facts would say X, Y, and Z. I would do it immediately. And if he didn't, you have to convert immediately. I would bet my life on it, literally bet my life on it. That's how, to what level of, my belief is on that. Sadly, we can't, but I would love to do that. I'm not so sure they would, though. I don't know that would be the case. If we had the technology. The fear of it not being exactly the way it was said and the things that happened, it might not have even be Muhammad, but I'm not sure they'd want to do that, even if it was possible.
Well, I think it would be sufficient to simply send a video camera to Mecca. Go to Mecca, like in the year, the year of the elephant was 570, 571, round about then. So add another 100 years, after Muhammad was dead, go and take a video camera sometime around then and show us Mecca. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. And surprising that they're on drawings or it's more talked about in some way. Holland did, fairly extensive research on it. And there just doesn't seem to be that much information about it. It seems to be unless,
No, it's the first time it's mentioned is much, much later. And this is why, if you see these indications, if you see the directions of the mosque, and you hear all these stories, you see the different accounts of what is claimed and what reality is, and then you put everything together and you compile everything, it simply does not make sense the way that it is described in Quran and Sunnah. Doesn't. So you have to look at an alternative. This is the problem. We don't really know what the alternative is because we don't know which part was compiled by whom and based on how much reality. Because there is some reality. There is something. There are things, there are sort of geographical descriptions which absolutely are true. But this doesn't really matter, because you can say Spider-Man lived in New York and New York is there, but does it in any way validate Spider-Man? No. So, if you have the Red Sea and you have the Jordan River, yes, they exist, but does that validate Muhammad? No. And this is the whole point.
Yeah, I think there's a book that Spencer did, which of course they will all claim he's an Islamophobe.
Yeah.
So again, the old labels coming out, they just refute it. But I think he did a book on, did Muhammad exist? I haven't read it, but
I also haven't read it.
okay.
But Robert Spencer, let me tell you, he is thorough. From what I heard from him, what I know from him, yes, there's a lot of things where he goes overboard and there's a lot of hyperbole there, absolutely. But there's a lot of times where I think, wow, he really knows his shit.
Yeah. I've listened to some of his things as well. The word Islamophobe actually makes me want to listen to them more. So anybody that claims to be an Islamophobe, I want to hear what they've got to say, because I just dismiss the silly ad hominem. That doesn't mean anything to me. So I mean, Muslims, if you're listening, please tell us more. More of the Islamophobes that you know, so that we can go and listen to them and see what they actually have to say. Because unlike you, we listen to what they actually say. We will judge it on the content of what they're saying, whereas you'll just dismiss them as Islamophobes because you've heard that, or they might be critical of Islam or whatever the case is.
Unless you're a kufarophobe.
Sorry, you get cut off there?
Unless you're a kufarophobe.
Oh, okay. What is that?
I have no idea. I just made it up. It sounds nice.
So with this number 4, there was some more.
That's what it should be. Sorry.
Which one?
Kafirophobe.
Kafirophobe. There you go. Yes. Anything that's a phobe, hey? You just make something up, and then it becomes mainstream, and you get a lot of dimmies to just repeat it, and then people think it's true. Yeah, it's a good way not for things to happen. So this number 4 here, basically, there's more killing here. All the caliphs killing each other as well, infighting, power struggles, etc. And that's just the fate of those within the house of Islam. So, the claim here is that obviously, as soon as he died, there was all kinds of infighting and wars and battles, etc., etc. So again, this is obviously a point to say, hey, is Islam really a religion of peace? Because if in fact he had preached peace, and if we again compare with the Jains, the moment he died, nobody would have been fighting everybody. They would have all been peaceful, had a coexistence together, and this seemingly did not happen. Number 5. Muhammad directed Muslims to wage war on other religions, bring them into submission to Islam. Within the first few decades following his death, his Arabian companions invaded and conquered Christian, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, and Zoroastrian lands. A mere 25 years after Muhammad's death, Muslim armies had captured land and people within the modern borders and of over 28 countries outside of Saudi Arabia. So he's got I don't know if there's a link. No, there isn't there. So again, the claim is that, he directed them to wage war, which again flies in the face of the apologist's claim that all he did was defend. And again, that's very clear in Bill Warner's diagram as well, when he went and looked at all those wars along North Africa, the Southern Mediterranean, as far as Spain. And I don't know if they reached France. I don't remember in the diagram if they reached France, but we know they were obviously stopped in Vienna.
All the way up to Tours.
Up to?
Tours. And it was Frank Martel that united all the kings and managed to drive them back. And there's the anecdote that he went around them and took a sort of conquered or captured all the loot wagons that they had. And then they said, no, to hell with that. We don't want France. We want our loot back. So they raced after them, and they went back south again, and they took their stuff and then went back over into Spain.
Right. And obviously we know they were stopped in Vienna as well.
Vienna, yeah. When did Vienna attack the Arabian Peninsula? I don't remember that.
No. And of course, the other claim is that the Andalusian Golden Age, it was just so terrible in Spain that the Jews and some of the Christians actually invited the Muslims in there to presumably rule peacefully and happily, and it was a wonderful time, and everybody got on like a house on fire. And that doesn't seem to be the case either.
There's one thing you need to point out, and that is in the Quran it says that Islam will prevail over all other faiths or gods, God-based clubs or whatever you want to call them. So this built-in superiority has been there right from the word go.
Yes, yeah. And then that was, as you say, mentioned in the Quran itself. Number 6, Muslims continue their jihad against other religions for 1400 years, checked only by the ability of non-Muslims to defend themselves. To this day, not a week goes by that Islamic fundamentalists do not attempt to kill Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists explicitly in the name of Allah. None of the other religions are at war with each other. So yes, and of course, but the easy response from an apologist, hey, these Muslims are just the extremists. They are not the true Muslims. So, you can't choose them because you can go and find the Lord's Christian army. I've heard that one from Paul in Speaker's Corner and other people going, hey, these Christians, they also do these terror attacks like the Lord's army. Just because they've got the name the Lord's army in there doesn't mean, of course, that they are in fact Christian. But even if they claim to be, you'd have to go look in the Bible to find out where that is. And maybe they have. But how many is that compared to Islam? Even if we were extremely charitable and said, yes, in fact, everything you said about the Lord's army is true, what's the point? And the point that he and others will try to make is, hey, it's not just Islam. Well, thank you for at least acknowledging that Muslims and Islam are doing it. And now you're trying to offset that by saying, well, other religions do it. So, and if they did it, which again, just because they called the Lord's resistant army, they could be Muslim. Who knows? That doesn't say anything unless they're claiming to be Christian. So, yeah, none of the other religions are at war with each other. Not as far as I know. Well, certainly not open warfare anyway. Number 7, Islam is the only religion that has to retain its membership by formally threatening to kill anyone who leaves. This is according to the example set by Muhammad. And they've got it. And there we got it. Volume 4, Book 52, number 260. Narrated by Ikirma. I'm terrible with name pronunciation. Ali burnt some people, and this news reached Ibn Abbas, who said, had I been in his place, I would not have burnt them as the Prophet said. I would not have burnt them as the Prophet said. Don't punish anybody with Allah's punishment. No doubt I would have killed them, for the Prophet said, if somebody, a Muslim, disregards his religion, kill him. And obviously there's some other ones here as well. But again, they've got an answer for this. I can't remember off the top of my head what their response is to this. The apostasy thing is, it's okay to apostate as long as you don't go out and openly challenge Islam in the public arena, because then it can be seen as what's the word? Treason. Thank you. Yes. So that can be seen. So is there any that you know of? Is there any resource for this, or again, is this just something that's been made up recently? Is there anything in the Quran or the Hadith that talk about, hey, you can actually criticize Islam, but as long as you don't do it openly?
Well, yes and no. In the Quran, it says if you lose your religion, then you need to be killed. But there's another passage which says, well, if you I can't remember the wording though. If you leave, I can't remember how it says it. If you turn your back on what was said to you, and then you come back and you cause mischief in the land or something, then you're allowed to be killed. So you have both things.
Okay, so they're taking that bit, they're ignoring the other bit and taking that bit to go, hey, it's only if you cause mischief. Well, who decides who's causing mischief? Well, I mean, I don't see any other speakers corner type places or free speech in any other Muslim countries. In fact, exactly the opposite. So who makes that decision?
They always say, well, if you kill one person, it's like you killed all mankind. But if you look, then it's for the Israelis or Israelites who are not allowed to kill, and the Muslims are allowed to kill are not allowed to kill unless there's a reason. And now, who decides what the reason is? This is the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got the example of Muhammad to follow with the poet, whatever her name was, I can't remember now, who mocked Muhammad, and so he got her killed. Again, they want to make
a brutal way,
and they want to sort of somehow excuse that away. And the more I hear this, and probably by the time I've been doing this as long as you, I'd probably feel the same as you. It's just like you hear this nonsense over and over, and it's like I don't know, a child has got something and you are showing them that it's wrong, and they're trying to make every excuse under the sun to hold on to whatever it is. Santa Claus, hey, Santa, no. But hey, look, here's the tree. I've got his boot. I've got his sock. He definitely comes every Christmas, whatever the case is, And so there's this desperate need to hold on to the belief and to, ignore anything that you say around it. And this often seems to be, what I'm hearing more and more of. And this whole,
But the best story must be the one where he says, why didn't you kill him? Well, you didn't raise an eyebrow or anything. It's not for a prophet to raise an eyebrow.
Oh, yes.
That's a story.
Yes, you should have given me the Sam Harris eyebrow raise, and then I would have known. Yeah. Right. Number 8. Islam teaches that non-Muslims are less than fully human. Muhammad said that Muslims can be put to death for murder, but that a Muslim could never be put to death for killing a non-Muslim. How accurate is that one?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Because we often hear, and again, I hear the same things, in Speaker's Corner. Hey, non-Muslims, you're fine with us. You don't have to believe, etc. You can live with us in peace and harmony, etc.
There's an interesting detail here, because the Quran at one point says that if you kill someone, for example, then it's a freeman for a freeman and a slave for a slave, and then in the last instance, a woman for a woman. So a male slave, a believing male slave is worth more than a believing woman.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Which, that's another thing, isn't it? The equality of women. And then you get these articles and people saying, yep, Islam is the best thing. It's the most, it's done so much for women's rights, etc. You kind of want to be sick or hit your head or whatever the case is, and, wonder how people can say this.
The worst is that women are saying this.
Yes, then you get a few of the women that say that. And then, of course, the women that have suffered, Ayaan Hirsi Ali and many others, have to go and correct them, and then they are seen as Islamophobe. I mean, the irony, the dishonesty, all of this sort of stuff is just incredible. But they seem to be able to pull the wool over, again, other people that you would normally think are probably intellectually, the president or whoever it may be. I saw it again on one of these videos. Hillary Clinton, Obama, I mean, even to some degree, David Cameron, Islam is a religion of peace. And I think you and I have always agreed that, there's lots of peaceful Muslims potentially, but that doesn't mean that the ideology is peaceful. And I think we're going through them here and clearly showing that's not the case. And number 9, the Quran never speaks once of Allah's love for non-Muslims, but there are hundreds of verses that speak of Allah's cruelty towards and hatred of non-Muslims.
Yep. That's something that Bill also, I love the way that he is so succinct and it's so concise, the way that he says it, that half the Quran is about me. And I want to know why they are treating me so badly. And this is so true.
You mean Muhammad? Yeah.
No. Bill says half the Quran is about me. And I want to know why the Quran treats me so badly.
Oh, as the kafir, as the non-believer. Yeah. And this is one of the big things for me, is this whole love. I mean, you just never hear Muslims talk about love. It seems to me, certainly when they're trying to argue their positions, that the word love just doesn't exist. Now, the Christians will throw that word out. Now they're on the opposite end of the spectrum. They'll throw love out left, right, and center, and I don't think they understand what the word love means. But Muslims just never utter that word. It does not. Whenever I speak to somebody, the word love does not come into the conversation. And when I say, hey, the only sort of God that I could accept would be an unconditionally loving God, it's literally like I've spoken gobbledygook, scientific, cosmological or theoretical physics or something. It like, I think they can understand the words, but it hits the brain and it's like, I don't know what that means, unconditionally loving. Blah, 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 and it just rattles the brain completely. And this is a big thing, as you say, so many verses there admonishing non-believers and how Allah is going to punish you, etc., etc. And so the moral thing for me is, apart from not being true, the moral thing for me is the thing. So even if it were true, I would have to accept that he, she, it, whatever it is, exists. But to worship, I think that's immoral. But to have any sort of relationship with what I consider like some kind of celestial dictator, no. And number 10, I think, is sort of more rhetoric, I guess, than anything else. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, the last words from the cockpit of Flight 93. I can't remember. 93, was that the one that hit the Pentagon, or was that one of the ones that hit the
It went
Twin
down
Towers?
in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And this is
Right.
what they were screaming when they were running into the hotel. Really, they know that they are going to die. Because most of the Taliban who like ran into the hotel were killed by the security people, except of course the guy who killed himself in this suicide vest to open the door. But this is what they were screaming, and this is all they can. This is for them an adrenaline pusher.
Yes, because I mean, it takes something, doesn't it? It takes something extraordinary to give up your life that way, to literally go and commit suicide where you've got no hope of survival. And like you say, there's this view that the afterlife is more important than this life. And it was in that comment, wasn't it, from that woman as well? We've got something more wonderful than you. It's paradise. And so, and I just can't wrap my brain around if people actually do wake up every day and go, can't wait for paradise. And if that is the case, why not just kill yourself immediately? If all these extreme Muslims, not good Muslims, by the way, but the extreme Muslims, why don't they just all commit suicide? Because there's obviously a, what is it? There's some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Reason they're not allowed to do that, isn't there?
Prohibition, yes.
Yeah. That would just make life so much easier. Just go and commit suicide somewhere where you don't bother anybody else. Hey, no problem. Off you go and see if whether your mythical beliefs are in fact true.
Yeah, but look at this. I mean, it means that people were actually committing suicide, so they had to put this in the Quran. No, whoa. Yeah. You're supposed to get ready for the afterlife, but don't go and kill yourself, because I think a lot of people were actually going off and doing that.
Yes, that would make sense, wouldn't it? If you said that, paradise is the place to be and all this is just a test and so forth, I can clearly see why people would want to do that. And so, oh no, holy smoke, all these people are doing this sort of thing. But that would certainly solve the issue. I think that's a win-win for both sides, really.
Unless you are, unless of course you're a martyr, then you're allowed to.
Yes, exactly. But then you're taking civilians or innocent civilians or whatever, other people that don't wish to join you with you.
Yeah.
But of course, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think I've just put another page in there, so if people want to read a bit more, there is some more. I think that's, from my point of view, at least.
But you're going to get lots of comments. Yeah, but this is a hate speech site, and of course, it's everything is wrong because they're anti-Islam, and that's it. So, yeah. I mean, people are saying, yeah, but this is an anti-Muslim site, so everything on there is wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just that comment is like water off a duck's back. That means nothing to me. That's like a little child going, give me my toy back. It means nothing to me. Provide some coherent arguments that mean something. Don't just tell me that because you sound like a juvenile. It's like, oh, you hurt my feelings. You're a bad boy. I mean, come on, grow up. If you are an adult, then learn something. Have a conversation. Just don't give me this anti-Islamic, Islamophobe, all this nonsense. That's just like juvenile stuff to me. You need to grow up. If you want to come to the adults table and have a conversation, get rid of that sort of language. Otherwise, go back to the children's table. I'm going to be sort of very blunt with that now because that stuff doesn't mean anything to me. Get over it. But here's some more of the myths. Islam means peace. Islam respects women as equals. Jihad means inner struggle. Islam is a religion of peace, was obviously what we've gone through. Muslims believe in Jesus. Yeah, to whatever degree. Islam is tolerant of other religions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Islam facilitated a golden age of scientific discovery.
My favorite.
Maybe we should do that one. Islam is opposed to slavery. Oh, my word. Islam is incompatible with terrorism. Islam is a democracy. Yeah. The Quran is the Muslims' counterpart to the Bible. I don't know. Is this David Wood's site? I don't know. The Religion of Peace. Who knows? I don't care whose site it is. What I care about is whether it's true or not. Obviously, David Wood is supposedly an Islamophobe. I know he's a Christian and a fierce critic, as Warner and many others.
PhD.
Say again?
He has a PhD. I never knew that.
Does he? In what is that?
I don't know. Probably how to read the Bible.
Yeah, which I find is strange, isn't it? That they're so critical of Islam and yet they are Christians. I mean, same with Jay Smith and many other critics. It's strange that they're able to Christian Prince, whoever it may be, and yet they aren't Christians. Obviously, they feel like, that religion is, but the fundamentals of the God is not very dissimilar, is it?
Yeah.
So, but the, some of the specifics are clearly different. I mean, Jesus was, for all intents and purposes, a peaceful guy. He didn't go and kill everybody, etc. I mean, what's the worst thing he did?
Oh, no, I beg to differ.
Okay, go ahead. I'm happy with that. I'm happy to be corrected.
He went even, no, sell your clothes and buy a sword.
Oh, what is the Christian response to that? I mean,
well, this is more the allegoric meaning.
Is that what they will say?
Yes.
Right.
And you see, said, no, I have not come to fight. I've come here to fulfill. And I'm not taking anything away from what happened in what my dad did. No, absolutely not. And there's a lot of things where he says, no, I haven't come here to preach peace, but the sword. So he was actually, come on, the most sicky. I mean, this is so sick what Christians do. This thought crime. Okay, there's two things. The original crime, because Adam did something he wasn't supposed to do, then they blame Eve. Now, Eve was never told to not eat from the tree. It was Adam who was told, not Eve. But they punish Eve, put all the blame on the girl. And now, thousands of years later, we still need to be blamed for what some people did couple of thousand years ago. That's ludicrous. That's sick. And then Jesus comes along and says, look, if you look at a woman and you think, wow, sexy, boof, you're gone. You're in hell because you just committed the cardinal sin here. That's terrible.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I guess when I thought about it, what I'm saying is he didn't physically kill anybody himself, but you're right. He said certain things that allowed some of these other things to propagate and for other people to go ahead and do things that probably they may not have done had he not have said X, Y, and Z.
What about the pigs? I mean, he killed all the pigs of a farmer. What's the poor farmer going to do? He's bankrupt.
Is he? I don't remember that. See, I'm not that clued up on Christianity. I mean, I must have read the Bible like 30 years ago or something, so I hardly remember anything about it.
I remember.
Okay. All right. So let's compare it there. I feel.
You know what Bill Warner did? The Department for Comparative Religion is down the hall. Brilliant. That was the best reply of ever, really.
Sorry, what was that?
When I said, well, they come up with the Bible, and all he had to comment was, sorry, the Department of Comparative Religions is down the hall. Woof, Clark, that's it. I don't want to talk about it. It's down the hall. Don't talk to me about that. I don't know anything. Brilliant. Love it.
Okay. Was that in a debate or a live thing or something?
Yeah, he was talking to us.
Oh, okay.
This happened. I said, well, what about this argument that you hear so many times when the Christians come up? When the people come up, what about the Christians? And he just came like, super.
Yeah. So I stand corrected with Jesus. Compare it to, I guess, Gandhi or Buddha. Then let's use those examples.
Yeah.
Or the Jainas. That's for me. Is just that's all they need. That's why I say it's so easy for us to improve the Quran. Just put in there the first line: don't do harm to any other living being. The Jains have still survived. Now, I'm not a pacifist myself, but the claim is, one of the claims is that the only way to survive is to defend yourself physically. And even if we're extremely charitable and accepted, which we don't, but if we did accept that was all they did, that's not the only way, because there's other religions, at least one, that have survived without physically harming another human being. So, and if they did, then they were not considered Jain. So, that's for me, isn't it? But as I say, I'm not a pacifist myself, but there are pacifists out there and they have survived and have done for however many thousand years. I think Jainism is way older, isn't it, than Islam? I don't know if it's older than Christianity. It might be. I don't know.
I don't know. I've got no idea.
No.
And I'm too lazy to look now.
No, that's all good. So let me unshare that screen. So you've got the links. If you're a viewer and you want to go and read more, then you have that. Again, if you claim that this is Islamic phobic, don't bother with me. That's a juvenile response. If in fact you've got arguments that suggest that whatever's being said here is incorrect, then post that or come onto the show next time. We're happy to have that conversation. There we go. Somebody saying Jainism is 5,000 years old. Thank you for that. If that's the case, then yes, probably one of the older religions that's going about. So, I think it's fairly clear from my point of view. But it was good to go through it and to have commentary with you that Islam in order to say Islam is the religion of peace, the only way that you can do that seemingly is to ignore the things that Muhammad did, apologize for that, dodge those sort of things, or point to peaceful Muslims. But that's why I don't point to people per se as an indication of a religion per se, because you can always have the extremists and the peaceful people. But you look at the text, you look at the life of Muhammad, because people followed him. That's all you really need. Very peaceful, very pleasant, loving Muslims, but they are that way to the degree that they do not follow the life of Muhammad or the Quran as strictly or accurately as other Muslims do. So maybe that's all we can hope for, Stops. I don't know what your thought is on that. We can hope that people will call themselves Muslim and hopefully will become more cultural than anything like many Christians are, certainly in the UK.
Yeah, because you have to, first of all, get rid of this idea that Muhammad is a role model today.
Spot on. We've mentioned that so many times. If it was for the 7th century and they accepted that, boom, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
But it was still wrong in those days, okay? This is
sure.
We have made progress, and we're not saying that because people had slaves in those days and because Muhammad was a man of his time, that doesn't mean that he was right. This is the difference, okay? But we can't change what happened in those days. We can only change it for today and make it better today and say no to slavery. That's the most important point, I think.
Yes, exactly. We can point out that it was wrong, but that it was whatever it was in the day. Might have been, again, I'm happy to try and go a charitable step when I'm in a very good mood, which I am, a charitable step and go, hey, even if the paganism or the religious views that were happening at the time, just before Muhammad got on the scene, were more barbaric, and he made it potentially less barbaric. So 0 to 10, like 0 is like utterly barbaric and 10 is like utterly peaceful. If it was at a 2 and Muhammad made it a 3, well, that's good. But, we're at a 7 or whatever we are today, 8, whatever it might be today. And so we can point back. But the problem is, like you said, is that that's the life of Muhammad. If they could jettison that part of it and go, hey, here's the Quran, and they become more like the Christians, hey, here's a general message, and we'll choose these bits that we can live by today. But the challenge is, of course, unlike the Christians, that it's dictated exactly. And this is the challenge that I think, it's not as easy to do as Christianity.
Yeah, but because of this absolutist approach, it's why it's dying. I mean, who was it now who said, there's it was actually somebody, it was a Muslim apologist who said we have to acknowledge that today we have 33 or 32% atheists in Saudi Arabia.
Wow, that much. Goodness.
That high. He says it's unbelievable. But if you look at the statistics, if you look at the data, if you look at all the numbers that we're getting from out of Saudi Arabia at the moment, that is the likely number that we need to be, realistic with. And this is because it's so absolute. And this is why people can't understand. I'm always asking people, okay, if slavery, and then I describe it, going and taking people, blah, 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 blah. Is that something that belongs and is part of the 21st century in Europe? And everybody will say no. Then it will say, if a book says that, is it part of that? And then they have to say no, but they will not do that because then they know where it's leading to. But that's exactly how I prompt them.
Yeah. And I agree. And I had that conversation. I was very surprised that, a long time ago, I'm talking maybe a year ago, whatever, in Speaker's Corner, somebody from Saudi Arabia came to speak to me. He was a young man, early 20s. He said, yeah, we got in conversation, etc. And he's going, yeah, Rob, I'm an atheist. I wouldn't say it there openly. But you're surprised how many of the young people there are, looking at things that are not following all of this stuff. Because like you say, even if it comes from on high, I think there's an innate nature in some people, especially young people, and especially when you've got open to more information, etc., etc. You got the internet, all the rest of it, not to be enclosed in the small box, And I think you and I know that, we don't think that
problem for those people.
Sorry, say that again.
The internet is the problem for those people.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It gives you a different perspective, and it gives you access to the world that you don't get if you're only addressing the madrasa and the mosque. I see this. I mean, people, come on, they get up from their prayer mat, they go da, 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 and they go out and party.
Yeah. So they're still putting on the facade of doing X, Y, and Z, and then going out and doing the things that it supposedly is prohibited. So that's why I find it so.
Remember when Adnan Rashid said that? What did he say?
Yeah, I saw that comment. I don't know. Maybe you can elaborate on what that was.
Only atheists. Ah, yeah. They are only atheists because they want to be cool. That is exactly. Yeah, this is true. There's a lot of people that are trying to counter this, because they're so shit scared. So they're saying, well, actually, this is just the appeal that the atheists have, because they seem to be so rational, they seem to be so fact-based, and they seem to be so benevolent and everything. And this is why it's more cool to be an atheist than to be an old-fashioned, standard, run-of-the-mill Muslim. And that is what the appeal is for the younger generation. So they try and project this like it was, cool in the 60s to be like a hippie.
Yes, yeah. As if that's really gonna, make any dent at all. I mean, if that's the best you've got,
Exactly.
you're on a losing wicket.
That's what they do, yeah.
Yes, we can't think of anything better, so we'll make stuff up. But again, he's not here. By the way, if you like the show and you'd like to hear more, give us a few thumbs up there. We haven't got too many. We already have a few thumbs down as well. So those 5 people, please don't watch the show anymore if you don't want to. Obviously, it's not working for you. That's absolutely fine. We take our time and effort here because we're interested in this. We care about, the world to whatever degree we can. And like I say, showing those pictures of those women and other people that suffer under Islam in whatever sense in different countries around the world. We are often able to sit quite freely and have this conversation, even though when I say freely, some people know my face, some people have to hide their face, be it the masked Arab or Stop Spamming or other people who would in a peaceful, open, tolerant society not have to do this ever. But this shows that Christians don't have to do this. Scientologists don't have to do this. Buddhists don't have to do this. Why is it whenever you talk about Islam, then people have to be careful of what they reveal about themselves? I don't care who I meet or whatever. I'm not going to go look people up, other than if they make nonsense claims, then I'm going to go and challenge their nonsense claims. But I don't care where they live, who they, But this seems to be the case with Islam. And like you say, I think it's the younger generation who are inquisitive, who want to find out, what's potentially true, want to go find out what's going on in the rest of the world. And with the internet and people, being more critical and scrutinizing Islam, I think that's the biggest challenge that Islam will face. And the responses from and Rashid and many other apologists, just won't do it. It'll be the older generations. Yeah, you're right. The younger generations, this will blow right past them. You're completely wasting your time with that. I mean, the people that were hippies in the 1960s, people said they were hippies. That wasn't an insult to them. That was like, great, thank you very much. Tell me something. I feel good. It's great. So, I mean, that approach is like just going to sink like a lead balloon. Excuse me.
So means after. Well, then it's wrong because it's during. Oh no, Thumma means exactly that. It's during. Because somebody says, watch Adnan debate PZ Miles. And this is what happened. This is quite funny.
Oh yes, just to fill in the context of what Stops is talking about there. Adnan Rashid and Hamza Tortoise sort of cornered or got hold of PZ Miles as he was walking in or out of an atheist conference. I think, was it in Ireland or somewhere like that?
Correct.
And then they got they asked him about the what do you call it?
Embryology.
Embryology. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm coughing, so take over. Stops.
Well, they started with with all sorts of things. They started talking about embryology, where Hamza realized it was going south, and he wanted to switch to mountains. But then it didn't work. And then what happened is that Adnan says, well, it's in the Quran, it's very accurate. He then recited the verse. It's 24. No, it's at 524, I think. And then he goes and says, "This is what it says in the Quran. How embryology is so correct." And then PZMI says, "Well, that is not correct. What do you mean? Well, doesn't it say that it clothes the bones with flesh? Yes. Well, then that is not correct. No. It says it's after that. Well, then it's not correct." Because it happens during. Yeah, but Thumma means during, you see, because it also means, sorry, thank you, 2314. I knew it was something 24. Oh, I was class. And then Thumma became the laughing stock, because he says Thumma means it's exactly, it's after that. And then he says Thumma means it's exactly during that, and that is why the Quran is wrong. So no matter how you twist the Quran, the contents, and show that it's wrong, and compare it to reality, if you can make anything that you want. Yeah, but Keith Moore said that exactly. He doesn't like Keith Moore. Yeah, but he's an embryologist. Well, so am I. Oh, you're an oh, really? I didn't know that. This was so funny. Yes, exactly. Are you saying Keith was wrong? Oh, that was a classic. I love that.
Yes, it's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, these words can mean contradictory things, as Bill Warner said. It's dualistic. It can mean this, and for the rest of us who live in, let's call it a rational world, a contradiction is a no-no. And the moment you have a contradiction, like, hang on a moment. But seemingly, these two things not a problem for some Muslims. Again, I'm not going to claim that it's all Muslims. Some will pick up a problem here. How they resolve that in their own mind is their own sort of journey, I guess. But this whole thing of, it can mean before, but it can also mean during. I mean, come on. If you want to, again, be at an adult table, the rest of us work on the laws of logic. Now, if you want to jettison that, then don't come and expect to, be taken seriously that you're reasonable or rational, because, we're just going to have a big smile. But they don't seem to have a problem.
Do you know the Corpus Qur'an?
I've heard of it, but tell me a bit more. I remember hearing that, but
this is, I think, the most authoritative background site that you can get on the internet.
Ah, yes.
What they have is they take all the sentences, they give you different translations, but the most important thing is they give you a word-by-word rundown of what each sentence in the Quran means. Now, if you go to 4:3, in other words, chapter 4, sentence 3.
Do you want to share your screen there, Stop, so people can see it? Are you on there at the moment?
Oh, can I? No, I'm not on there. It doesn't matter. I know this from the top of my head, because it says it talks about the orphans and how you're supposed to marry. Thumma actually means after, and then how you can marry women, and you can marry women in 2s or 3s or 4s. Now, if you go to that, this would mean that you can marry up to 4 women. Okay, this is the general ruling in Islam. But if you go to the corpus and you read this, you will see that in the Quran, it uses the word wa, which is and. So in the corpus, it says when it uses this Arabic letter for wa, they say it's and then in the translation they actually put it's or. So even the corpus says that even though the Quran says and, the and is not really an and, it's supposed to be an or. Because then if you say 4, if you say 2 and 3 and 4, so 2 and 3 is 5 and 4 is 9. So you can marry 9 women. And there are fatwas out there which say that, yes, you're allowed to marry 9 women. But normally it's or. So they change the word and to an or within 1 centimeter, and you can see that it says and all the sentences start with and you can see that the and is in the sentence, and you can see the or coming in just in the next part of the sentence where it says, or you can do this and this. So you have the and the or, but no, they need to change the and to an or just to make it sound right for them. That's how dishonest the Quran is.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
How you can change thumma to mean immediately or at the same time, and how you can make an and into an or. Anything is possible. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think we've come to about the end. Have you got a hadith of the day?
Shit. Forgot about that. Give me a second.
Problem. By the way, are you available next Friday? If not, I was thinking of taking a break from the show for a week, but if you're available, we'll see what we can do. If not, then we'll probably take a break and come back in 2 weeks' time.
I should be around, yes.
All right, I'll chat to you on Skype. So if you're watching here, we may be on next Friday. If you do not see a hangout, come set up by 7 o'clock next Friday evening. Then we may be taking a break for a week, and we'll definitely be back the last Friday of the year to see out 2017. Maybe we'll go back and talk about some of the things from 2017, look back and see what we've seen and so forth. So go ahead, Stops.
This is an interesting one, because it shows that Muhammad actually says he can be wrong. Sahih Bukhari, volume 3, book 43, number 638. The wife of the Prophet, we don't know which one, Allah's apostle heard some people quarreling at the door of his dwelling. He came out and said, I am only a human being, and opponents come to me to settle their problems. Maybe someone amongst you can present his case more eloquently than the other, whereby I may consider him true and give a verdict in his favor. So if I give the right of a Muslim to another by mistake, then it is really a portion of hellfire, and he has the option to take or give up before the day of resurrection. So there you go. Muhammad says, yes, I can be wrong.
Thank you for that. But I don't think Muslims dispute that, because obviously he was tricked by Satan as well, isn't it? So they don't dispute that.
Was he really tricked? Well, this is a story that has never been substantiated.
Oh, okay, right. So just one of those claims again.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, as always. As I say, if my voice doesn't improve, it's a bit of a challenge at the moment to do a show like this. I don't sound great for the viewers. I'm coughing and spluttering still here. So we may or may not do a show next week, but we should be back, as I say, last Friday of the year. And we'll probably do a look back. So thank you again for being a co-host, as always, a knowledgeable co-host.
Welcome.
Thank you to all the viewers. Thank you to everybody in the chat. And we will see you, if not next Friday, then certainly the last Friday of 2017. Until then, take care, be safe, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, guys. Have fun. Go well.
Good night. Thank you, Stops.
Be skeptical and use critical thinking.
Amen to that.
Bye.
Bye.